evening, everyone. I'm Barbara McNulty, Director of the Suzanne H. Arnold Art Gallery, and we welcome you here this evening. I just want to let you know that this program is being live streamed, and we're just so excited to be able to present this. The program will last from 5 to 6, and then we will have time for questions afterwards if you'd like to come up and look at some of the materials that Jay Smar has brought along with him. I invite you to do so. And so we welcome you to our lecture in conjunction with the exhibition, Our Strength is Our People, the Humanist Photographs of Lewis Hine. I would like to thank Jeff Snyder, Chair of the Music Department, for his collaboration and the financial support from the Music Department in helping to host this event. I have to say it was so nice to finally meet Jay this evening. We've been planning this for 3 years, so anyway. In terms of upcoming events, I just wanted to let you know that Dr. Shannon Egan, Director of the Schmucker Art Gallery, Gettysburg College, and specialist in photography and contemporary art, will be presenting the lecture, All Are Working Here, Lewis Hine in Focus, and that will be on March 17th at 5 p.m. And we have brochures out in the lobby if you care to look at our table on your way out. This evening, we look forward to an informative yet musical and historical program with original coal mining songs of northeastern Pennsylvania, where Jay Smar resides. It will include documented songs of this region during the early 1900s, highlighting the everyday struggles and life of the European coal miner in northeastern Pennsylvania. Jay's grandfather mined coal in Schuylkill and Carbon County, PA for over 50 years, and we have a photograph of him on our poster board. Songs sung by miners, recorded by folklorist, journalist George Corson of Pottsville, Pennsylvania, are performed, as well as songs about more contemporary issues, such as the fires of Centralia, which we will be hearing this evening, that documents the 50-year-old coal fire that burns until this day. George Corson, who was a journalist in Schuylkill in the mid-1900s, recorded coal miners' songs and poetry and published them in one book titled Minstrels of the Mine Patch. There's a copy of this book and a display that, as I mentioned before, containing photos and other information that Jay will reference during the program. You might wonder about the connection to Lewis Hine, and I just wanted to mention that many of the young boys working in these mines were documented by legendary social documentary photographer Lewis Hine, who is currently featured in the gallery, and I invite you to visit after the presentation. Our guest, Jay Smar, will perform these songs accompanied by guitar and banjo, and at the end of the program will sing, fiddle, and flatfoot clog dance simultaneously on a piece of amplified wood that I'm standing on. I think I'd like to give it a try. Anyway, please help me to welcome Jay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for the introduction as well, Professor. I'll start off with, since the program is titled Folklore and Coal Mining Songs of Northeast Pennsylvania, we're talking about the Carbon, Schuylkill, Lackawanna, Luzerne County, particularly the town of Jim Thorpe. I'm sure most of you have been up there vacationing at one time or not. If you haven't, it'd be a great place to go for like even a day trip. But the folklore will go outside the town of Jim Thorpe. Well, I should say we'll start with Jim Thorpe used to be called Mock Chunk many years ago because we had the Lenape Indians in that region who were also part of the Delaware Indians. So a lot of the towns in our region have Lenape names, Tamaqua, Tuscarora, Nesquehoning, and so forth. And the town was renamed Jim Thorpe after the very famous native athlete of the 1912 Olympics in Sweden. And that was done in 1954. His wife had a little bit to do with that. So the town was called Montchuck. And outside the town, there's a waterfall called Glenanoco. And keep that name in mind, Glenanoco. I'll tell you about it after the song then. The legend goes that Anoco was a Native American princess who fell in love with a fur trader. Her father, the chief, forbid this love. He didn't want them to see each other. So he had the fur trader executed by pushing him off the waterfall. There's 3 of them up there, the biggest one being about 90 feet or so. And Onoko was hiding out in the bushes, and she saw her boyfriend, lover, husband-to-be get executed, could no longer live without her love, and also decided to take her own life by jumping off the waterfall. And they say at about 9:15 in the morning, you could still see her spirit floating across the water. This is called the Ballad of Glenanoco. Up in the Appalachian Mountains, hides a mysterious natural fountain, was known to all as Boys Ravine, where Delaware Indians gathered round to discuss their forest hunting grounds, where hawks and buzzards only could have seen. A hunter came upon the tribe, wanting just to trade some hides and rest his weary head there for a spell. And after swamping skins he slaughtered, discovered a beautiful Indian daughter, never knew she'd be gift so well. And the Indian chief thought, could it be this man called Opachee came to take a daughter from his side? Would it be her father's jealousy to find a red man of his bride? Soon the eyes began to glare, as only 2 in love could share. The chief then cast the young man's fate. A council held at Sunrise Point, where all the tribe would come and join and judge the life of the young girl's mate. But Opachee never had a chance. He knew about the Indians' tribal dance. Soon his soul would walk in heaven or hell. And there when the council gave their sentence, hiding out in the rhododendrons, Princess thought of life without her love. Open up, go, your heart's filled with pain. It was true love you had found. Open up, go, could your life be the same when his body hits the ground? They brought him to the highest cliff, trembling at the sight of it, waiting for his judgment day. They pushed him off and down, he plunged. The chief relaxed, his pride was won, knowing there could be no other way. Noco's life could not go on. She screamed into herself headlong over the cliff, joined her lover's body there. Now her memories fill the air at the bottom of the glen. And it was said after she was dead, people to this day insist that on the walls the Glenanoco Falls walks the spirit of the mists. And though she's gone, the waterfall flows on with the restless Indian soul. And it's been seen as clock strike 9:15, the spirit of Glenanoco. With a sidebar of that song, I was living in Harrisburg back in the 80s and early 90s, and coming from a little small coal mining town, if you go out and paint your mailbox, you make it to the front page of the local newspaper, little town stuff like that. And that was the instance in this, that the local newspaper was nice enough to do an article on it, but they put the wrong song title in, and I cut this out. I have it at home. This is no word of lie. Instead of them printing the ballad of Glenn and Yoko, they printed the ballad of John and Yoko. True story. I have it at home. To coal mining, everybody sort of had a hero that not necessarily discovered coal, because the Native Americans used coal on a small basis, and also blacksmiths used coal on a small basis. But people who industrialized it really made a living out of selling it. One of the, I guess, documented, the first discovery was in Pottsville by a gentleman named McGuire, and then there were a few others. There were the Smith brothers up in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. And in our area, I'm originally from a little town called Coaldale, which is west of Jim Thorpe that I just mentioned about 15 minutes or so forth. And Coaldale is part of the valley called Panther Valley. It's comprised of the towns of Lansford, Coaldale, Summit Hill, Nesquehoning, and Lake Hotter. And the story goes up in the town of Summit Hill. There was a gentleman named Philip Ginther. He was a farmer, and he was out hunting one day, and it was raining pretty profusely, pretty hard, and he had this big rim hat on, and he had his gun over his shoulder. He didn't get anything, and he was on his way home, and he accidentally kicked this black rock. And he heard stories from the Native Americans that there was this rock in the region, this black rock in the region that burned. So he took it home and did some experiments with it. He found out it not only did it burn, it burned hot, and it burned hot for a long time. He figured, I could sell this stuff. People will use it. So he contacted people throughout the region. The city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, wanted all the coal. We could give it to them. Problem was getting it there. But coal miners, if they didn't have it, they invented it. And the town of Summit Hill, from the town of Jim Thorpe, geographically is just about 9 miles. So they knew there was the Lehigh River coming down through, actually splitting the town of Jim Thorpe. They figured if they could get the coal from the town of Summit Hill to the town of Mock Chunk, as it was called back then, they could put it on boats and barges, ship it down to Philadelphia for sale. That problem was solved. The problem still existed, them getting it from the little town of Summit Hill to Jim Thorpe. So they came up with this idea for a gravity railroad. It was a railroad called the Switchback Railroad. I do have a couple of photographs over here. If you're looking on the third aisle down, right in the middle, there's a photograph of it. And also in the second row here, there's a darker gray photograph. And you're welcome to check these out after the program. But to make a long story short, the coal miners used it on weekdays and weekends. They gave rides on it. And to make a very long story short, it's where they invented the first roller coaster. It was 1791 when Philip Ginther and his gun left only to hunt a family meal. But having kicked out no game, he headed homeward up the plain, growing dark something with his heel. Now traditions of that country's soil occurred to him might be cold, and shipped it off to Philadelphia. hay. Then Gitters sat and waited till he heard calling in Summit Hill from Charles Sist, a printer in his day. There's coal in Summit Hill, coal in Summit Hill. Come the Carbon County, there's work for all for plenty. There's coal in Summit Hill, they say. Coal in Summit Hill. Come the Carbon County, there's coal in Summit Hill. Now Gitter was to show to Sis the location of the incident, and then return title him some land. Then Sister Mice began, you see, to form the Lehigh Coal Mine Company. Then took on Helliger through hand. But upon inspecting rocks of coal, discovered it was partly stone, and watered down them brown spruce tops. A bullet filled the center square, only put the flame out there. The coal was left to use for sidewalks. But later on they found it true, the coal that burned the flame of blue from mine to river was 9 miles though. So ways we needed to deliver black diamond to the Lehigh River, an 1827 switchback railroad. There's coal in Summit Hill, coal in Summit Hill. Come to Carbon County, there's work for all and plenty. There's coal in Summit Hill, they say. Coal in Summit Hill. Come to Carbon County, there's coal in Summit Hill. The Switchback Railroad. Railroad cars and top sharp mountain work a rapidly run down the mountain to the speed of 65. To coal chutes at the Block Truck Station, on to marks for transportation. But uphill mule trip took 3 hours ride. And as the need for coal increased, caused the need for mules to cease, a better way was needed up the plain. So a backtrack built in 44 was to be the opening door for roller coasters of the present day. And steam engines that were the juice that pulled the body, the caboose, were located at 2 different planes. No, cause now on bands of steel were pulled to top by a huge wheel, returning them back up to load it again. There's coal in Summit Hill, coal in Summit Hill. Come to Carbon County, there's work for all plenty. There's coal in Summit Hill, there's coal in Summit Hill. Come to Carbon County, there's coal in Summit Hill. The street that had a 2-fold pride, on weekends was an amusement ride, for $1 bought a miner's view. But after years of work and pleasure, progressive times, progressive pressure, in 1937, switchback was through. And as the hands of time move on, Switchback Railroad now has gone, leaving only leisure walking trails. But as you walk upon the soil, imagine your men days of old, when they found their coal Summer Hill. It's cold in Summer Hill, cold in Summer Hill. Down the Carter County, there's work for all 50 there. It's cold in Summer Hill, there's cold in Summer Hill. Down the Carter County, there's cold in Summer Hill. I'm not an authority on this topic, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions yet on anything. And you could wait till after the program as well, too. Okay? And those online, if you have questions online, if you'd like to email them to me, if you'd like, it's jsmar@comcast.net, JAYSMAR@comcast.net, or to the center here, you could email them too as well, if you'd like. The first different jobs in the mines are run really according to your age and to your ethnicity. A lot of the young boys, well, the Europeans first were contacted by flyers and by posters and by basically word of mouth to come to work in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania. And a lot of the posters and so forth, it was misleading information. They told them more or less like, if you come to work here, that the streets were lined with gold. Well, there's a place on Ellis Island where a lot of them docked at, and there's supposed to be a wall on that island, and it has an inscription on it to the fact that they told us the streets would be lined with gold, but they didn't tell us that we would be the ones digging the streets. So you can see where a lot of misinformation was there. But the boys as young as 6 years old would be slate pickers up top here in the second row in. You can see a gentleman standing up there. And what they would do is, in anthracite mining, we're in the anthracite region in the northeast. Pretty much everything else from west on out is, the bituminous coal, the softer coal. There are pockets in Germany and a few other countries, but we have about 78, I was told, we have about 78% of the world's anthracite coal, the hard coal in north and east Pennsylvania. There's still a lot of coal up there. It's just with environmental issues and fuel issues, that sort of type of thing, and just basically cost efficiency getting the coal. But on top of a anthracite mine, veins run differently in anthracite mines. They run at slants and pitches and so forth, where bituminous coal is flat. So near a coal mine or on top of a coal mine, there would be a building. The building is called the breaker. And that's where they would bring in all the coal with all its impurities and dirt and slate and so forth. And as you know, the slate did not burn. So what they did is there would be these big chutes coming down inside the mine, and they would have the dirt with all the impurities, and these boys would put slats across the sheets, and they would sit on them, and they would sprag with their feet. They would move the coal with their feet and the dirt and so forth, and they would pick the slate from the rock, because it didn't burn, and they would get 6 cents an hour, and that was for a 12-hour shift. Now don't forget, that was 100 years ago about or so, if not longer. But if they broke something, like if they broke an axe, a pick, or a shovel, that came out of their paycheck. So sometimes when they went to get paid at the end of the week, they actually wound up owing money to the coal mine. So once again, you can see where a lot of the strikes and a lot of the marches got a lot of their fueling from. But the young boys would be working there, and this was before any kind of child labor laws came into effect, which was around the 1930s or so forth. And as I said about the man with the stick, I said a gentleman before, but I'll digress on that. There was a man with a stick there, and he was more or less the taskmaster, and they did not like him, because you know what he did to the young boys to get them working. So this is a tune by a friend of mine named Lex Romaine from the Scranton area. It's called the Breaker Boys. Breaker boys, having time go to work before the sun. They don't get home till work is done. Break it boys, time to shout above the noise. When picking slate from the coal, they make the money but lose their soul. Just 9 years old, should be in school. Learn to live the golden rule. You should learn to read and write, not just learn to cuss and fight. Chews tobacco, smokes his smokes, hides his pay from his folks. He drinks his whiskey when he can. He's out to prove that he's a man. A braver boy can hide his tears. A foreman's cane is what he fears. Your work too slow, a curse and yell. You wish that he would go to hell. You laugh too loud, you get the stare. Your punch your boss, he'll dock your share. And whack your back until it's red. And you wish that he was dead. Breaker boys have no time to play with toys. They go to work before the sun. They don't get home till work is done. Breaker boys have to shout above the noise. When picking slate from the coal, they make the money but lose their soul. Breaker boys turn into men. They work the mind from end to end. One drives a mule, one works a drill. There is no job he cannot fill. And now that he's a man, anyone can understand that he's the first you would employ because he was a breaker boy. Breaker boys have no time to play with toys. They go to work before the sun. They don't get home till work is done. Breaker boys have to shout above the noise. When picking slate from the coal, they make the money but lose their soul. When picking slate from the coal, they make the money but lose their soul. Continuing with further jobs in the coal mines, Europeans, really, if you weren't German or Welsh, you had no idea how to mine coal. They had no experience. The German and the Welsh were made the mine bosses here primarily because they had some experience, and they were also some of the first Europeans to migrate over here to work in the coal mines. So it was just natural that they would do that, but you know, if you were like, my grandfather was Slavic, his name was Krakovich, or if you were Italian, or especially the Irish, you could never work your way up to be a coal mine boss. So there was a little bit of, you know, problems going on there. But one of the jobs in the mines was working in 30-inch coal. 30-inch coal is about this size of the vein in the coal. There's different size veins in the coal, but in this song it's 30-inch coal. And in 30-inch coal, you've all seen documentaries or film footage of coal miners in a coal mine going in on a train. They're usually sitting upright like you and I are now. And 30-inch coal, you lay on your back or you lay on your stomach and you're inserted into that vein. And that's how you work your 10 or 12-hour shift. And I did have the pleasure of speaking with a gentleman who was a school teacher up in Williams Valley, Pennsylvania. Williams Valley is the northwest corner of Schuylkill County, up near Likens, if you're more familiar with that. And he was a teacher nationally for 3 months, and for 3 months he worked in his parents' coal mine. And he said he worked in 30-inch coal. He said it was that confining in there that when he went to take a drink of water from his thermos, he couldn't put it in front of his face. He had to tip it off to the side. So if you're claustrophobic, this was not the job for you. And this song was actually written in the Kentucky-Tennessee area. We had George Corson, as Professor mentioned before, George Corson, who recorded coal miners in this region, but he did not sing songs or anything. In the Kentucky-Tennessee area, they had a gentleman there named George Tucker, who was very instrumental in organizing the unionization of coal miners in that particular region. And not only did he record other people singing coal mining songs, but he himself sang coal mining tunes. And this is a song a friend of his named Mike Paxton wrote called 30-Inch Coal. And you'll hear this song riding on a lizard in a 30-inch coal. The lizard was the nickname for the train. These guys had to wear elbow pads and knee pads. It's a real quick song. Grab a pick and shovel, and mine alive. Don't forget your fuses and your dynamite. Put on your knee pads and your safety toes. We're going to the coal mine where the coal is low. Riding on a lizard in a 30-inch coal. See the cable sparking, watch your little wheels roll. Oh, Lord have mercy on a miner's soul. Down on your poor knees in a 30-inch coal. Timber up your heading, set the wedges tight, or your wife and your children won't see you tonight. Spread it out a little rock dust, spin a little bit more, to keep that coal dust on the mining floor. Riding on a lizard in a 30-inch coal. See the cable sparking, watch your little wheels roll. Oh, Lord have mercy on a miner's soul. Down on your poor knees in the 30-inch coal. Riding on a lizard in a 30-inch coal. See the cable sparking, watch your windows roll. Oh, Lord have mercy on a miner's soul. Down on your poor knees in a 30-inch coal. So that was 30-inch coal, and then I went into a tune of mine called Yankee March. Just want to do something just to prove that I do happy music as well, too. With Europeans, like I said, not really understanding how to properly coal mine, there were a lot of accidents. And this next particular song, actually, on the far wall of your museum over here, there is a thing about the Avondale mine disaster. Now, Avondale was a mine on Route 11 in between Wilkes-Barre and Bloomsburg. And why they wrote a song of it, it was the first major disaster in the anthracite field. 110 boys and men lost their particular life in this disaster. And as most of you are aware, there's basically two ways to mine coal. There's the strip mining, where you put dynamite into the mountain and you blow apart the mountain to get to the mineral. And then there would be the shaft mining, which reminds you much of like an elevator, which they seldom do anymore, although some bootleg coal miners do that. Bootleg means it's a private-owned company that will do that, usually a family-run service. But this happened to be a shaft mine, and like I said, you know, when you make experiments, or try experiments sometimes, they backfire. This was in the case of the Avondale mine disaster. It happened to be a shaft mine. And the old-time coal miners thought it was a good idea at the bottom of that shaft to build a fire. Now the purpose of the fire was to move the hot air, move the cold air around so the coal miners could breathe a little bit better. Well, one day the fire got out of hand. They're thinking maybe some hay from feeding the mules or so forth got onto the fire, ignited it, and it burned its way up to the top of the breaker, to the top of the building, and more or less suffocated these 110 boys and men. But it was after this accident occurred that they instituted a new coal mining law that you had to have 2 ways in and out of the coal mine. Prior to that law, it was 1 way in and 1 way out. So if any good came out of this situation, it was this. So this was actually recorded inside the Newkirk coal mine by George Corson, recorded a gentleman named John Quinn singing this back in 1956. If you see this second photograph, here's some coal miners standing up there fiddling and all that. I'll get into that in a little bit. But that's the Newkirk coal mine outside of Tamaqua. So this was recorded in there and it was sung a cappella, and I just kind of put some chords to it. Avondale mine disaster. Good Christians on both brave and small and pray for them near. And listen with attention one the truth that will declare. When you hear this lamentation, it will cause you weep wail about the suffocation in the mines of Avondale. On the 6th day of September 1869, those miners all them got a car to go work in the mines. But little did they think that death would soon prevail, for they would return again from the mines of Avondale. The women and their children, their hearts were filled with joy to see their men go to their work, and likewise every boy. But a dismal sight one day night soon made them turn pale when they saw the breaker burning over the mines of Avondale. From here and there and everywhere they traveled in a crowd, some tearing off their clothes and hair and crying out aloud, "Get our husbands and our sons, death is going to steal their lives away without delay in the mines of Avondale." But all in vain, there was no hope, one single soul to save, for not a second out there from that subterranean cave. No pen can write the awful fright and horror that prevailed among those dying victims in the mines of Avondale. 67, a consultation, then the sense was just to volunteer, for to go down this dismal shaft to seek their comrades dear. 2 Welshmen brave without dismay, courage without fail, went down the shaft without delay in the mines of Avondale. When at the bottom they arrived and thought to make their way, one of them died for want of air, while the other in great dismay. He gave a sign to hoist him up to tell the dreadful tale that all was lost forever in the mines of Avondale. And to place to send them some fresh air. Those men that next went down again, and then they took good care. They traversed through the chambers, and this time did not fail in finding those dead bodies in the mines of Avondale. 67 was the number that in the heap were found. It seemed that they were both quite lame. that paid underneath the ground. They found the father with this unclasped in his arms so pale. It was a heart rendering scene in the minds of Avondale. Now to conclude and make an end and number up and down, 110 brave strong men were smothered underground. They're in the graves till this last day their widows may declare, and the orphans' cries, they're in the skies all around through Avondale. Well, I'm sure most of you have heard about the fires of Centralia up there in Columbia County. If you haven't, I'll explain it, especially to the folks viewing at home. This is a mine fire that, as I mentioned before, is burning for over 50 years now. And took me about 10 years to come up with all this information. I had the opportunity and the pleasure to interview one of the mayors up there at the time. His name was Smar, and I actually gave him a shout out in the song too as well. But basically is that this fire was burning underneath the town. The government said that it was unsafe to live there. They didn't demand that the people left, but they even suggested that it was dangerous to live there, so they even built another town for them. Some people stayed, some people went. This was going back and forth for 50 years, literally. And it was just maybe about 4 or 5 years ago that the government gave in and they let the people stay there. So we won. We won there, able to stay there. But this is a compilation actually from the book by David Deacock over there. I have a copy of it. He's a reporter and a journalist and also a writer from the Harrisburg area. And he has a couple different versions of this book, I guess. But this is pretty much information from his book. So this is called The Fires of Centralia. I should tell you, basically, nobody knows how it started. There's a couple of different theories. And one is, for every Memorial weekend, they always have a parade up to the cemetery to honor the fallen soldiers. Right next to the cemetery happens to be a stripping pit, a big hole where they put all the garbage throughout the year. And then prior to the parade, they burn this garbage, and it said that maybe they didn't extinguish it properly, or it might hit a vein up the road. So there's a couple of different theories, but that's basically what they're going with. But fires of Centralia. No one showed just how it started, or how the mine fire spread. The Commonwealth had issued warnings this fire could bring death. A town of miners, miners' families, once 2,000 strong. The same King Cold that gave it birth might kill it for too long. Some say the vein that big mine runs on Flinton 32. It never died, and would catch a breath and spread its fiery flue. Others tell the tale of garbage tossed in stripping pits. Might have been the weekly fuel to keep the fire lit. The teeming burned on township sites, but the borough first heard the call. 3 full days fell short with dousing shy of borough walls. For lack of funds, the state was called to ease financial loads, but a town so small was no concern to 6 months down the road. Oh, Centralia, Pennsylvania, your dying future is in need. The state will claim to care about you, but is it really hidden greed? tension grew, the sleep sent engineers to evaluate, contemplate an outcome without fear. First thought was to excavate over 100 acres of coal, but would cost 80 million, and most of all, destroy 100 homes. Holes were bored in, stripping walls packed with non-flammables. Never were they reinforced, more air came through the holes. A trench surrounding the fire, but through the core of town might have been an answered prayer, but was thought to split the ground. Now by the floor, the north, the miners' patience turned to rage. His cover bear no food, found that till his back in a mine shaft cage. Companies of coal donated funds to dig it out, but while the government stopped them one day short, left town folk deep in town. Oh, Centralia, who could blame ya? To live and die on the land you love. Oh, Centralia, to stay or leave won't shame ya. If it comes to push or shove. The borough owns the mineral rights, coal barons own the land. With 40 million worth of coal below, not touched by man. But as long as one Centralia stays and holds their ground, no government or establishment can take mine in this town. Weeks to months, months to years, solutions came and went. The AML gave the state some cash, but on talent not be spent. Federal funded proposal sought to relocate the town. 400 voted to stay right there, 600 turned them down. Homes were valued market price by governmental say, and some would move to Denmark Gardens, but others couldn't be swayed. In 92, the state declared eminent domain, meant these great-grandchildren on their own homes, a rent they might now pay. Oh, Centralia, they tried to tame ya. 40 years of the same old guff. Oh, Centralia, I know it pains you, and I pray to see enough's enough. Remember, no one's sure just how it started, or how the mine fire spread, but what's left of town's on little ground, but they'll stay there till their death. The Marlana, upper by blood, and if you left on the hill, resist the state officials' warnings, guess they always will. But to leave the land or take a stand on grandpa families old, I need a flask for such a task. I'd be drunk down to my soul. And here sometimes still a 99 stuck in some small town news reminds us of the deep mine fire, but how deep our families root. Oh, Centralia. That was the short version. I mentioned about the Molly McGuires before. More or less, they were the Robin Hoods of the region, I guess you could say. And with the long working days, the 12-hour working shift, and unhealthy working conditions, the low pay scale, the coal barons kept on piling more and piling more on top of the coal miner, and nobody was doing anything about it. And up steps to Molly McGuire. Now, Molly McGuire was actually a woman from Ireland who, for some reason, was being evicted from her house. Her son got a gang together. They went after the landlord. There was a shootout in the street, and the son got killed. Now, that gang is said to stay intact and come over here to work in the coal fields of northeast Pennsylvania. And they sort of, they were accused, I'm going to say accused of a lot of things because there was never any hardcore evidence. What they did is they fought back. They were wanted their voices heard. They were accused of blowing up like coal mine bosses' houses or the coal mine itself. And they joined an organization called the Ancient Order of Hibernians, which is a very Catholic, very proper organization in the Northeast. So if they would say, oh, Jack McGuire, he must be a Molly McGuire, he beat up so-and-so last night, they would say, oh no, he can never do that, he's a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. So it was a very proper organization that they hid behind. But they fought for the coal miners' rights and so forth, and they hired a Detective Pinkerton agency out of Philadelphia to come break them. Did anybody ever see the movie, The Molly McGuires? It's around, I guess, in the 1960s, late 60s or so forth. Sean Connery was in it, and part of it was filmed in the Jim Thorpe area. But anyway, this is The Rise and Fall of Molly McGuire. This is on my new album called Give It Back. Started north of Ireland about 9 storms ago. A woman named McGuire was in the street to go. Her son and petty landlord had stuff all on the ground. When in the midst some bullets flew and killed the young man down. Now at the funeral of the lad, the remaining sons did vow to confront the landlord murderer and up somehow. Word spread all about the county, excitement grew the higher, that soon the sons would take their toll, the sons of Molly McGuire. Neighbors joined the relatives to one last mission run. The gang did grow like fertile shrubs to ease their side to win. But after the revenge complete, the membership did stay and spread to Scotland and England and British colonies. Finally to America, what towns about to say. To streets of gold, they were told, but none found such a life. For 6 a day they were enslaved to labor half-day shifts, and for broken tools their pay reduced, pushed them to their wits. The ancient order of Hibernians were Catholic mates, said to be chartered in the Keystone State. But more and more as time went by, some say that it was so, that the 2 Irish memberships, the same boat did row. One day a detective, James McGuire, working for the government under Alan Pinkerton, posing as a mining loader, soon joined their gang, with one intention in his mind, to see the Mollies hang. Next thing is the gang was pinned for every act of fear, from a car that was to shut his mouth or open up his ears. Murders of a count of 12 would he might have heard, but courts would trust a detective's tale, but not in Molly's word. Nearing the conclusion of his observation time, whispers of his assassination plagued on his mind. Suspicion of detective raid hinted through the squad, so he went from the county to Philadelphia. Having collected evidence, the Molly didn't pursue. Trials, dated convictions may will him mostly do. The souls of all unjustly hanged will never be at rest Till years of time reverse their crime in judgment, God we trust. The counties now of Schuylkill and of Carbon were the sea, where the mummies dug the fields, so unions plant the seed. Now when you travel to the east and the mountains grow the higher, remember once the only sons, the sons of McGuire. Thank you. I'm going to end up with a little bit of flat foot. Clog dancing. I mentioned about George Corson recording coal miners. And he mentions in his book, actually this right over here is from a book called Pennsylvania Profiles. The gentleman is from Lower Lancaster and Willow Street down there. His name is Patrick Reynolds, and he always documents iniquities in Pennsylvania. And he states that some of the musicians would were coal miners. They'd grab a piece of sheet metal from the local coal mine, and they would go from coal patch town to coal patch town and dance, fiddle, and sing for food or clothing, for a night's lodging. And he even goes on the very last paragraph. He mentioned some of the musicians that would do this. Some of them were Con Carmen was from Hazleton, Martin Mulhall from Shenandoah, William Keating from Pottsville, Patrick and Jack Johnson from Summit Hill, Barney Kelly from Ashland, Dennis Coyle and Michael McAndrew from Wilkes-Barre, Harry Tempest from St. Clair, Bob Quigley and Jerry Byrne from Buck Run, Lance Ford's Joe Gallagher, and there's always Tommy Rollins from Edwardsville. So I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I'd like to thank the Art Gallery and particularly professors here for allowing me to perform my program here. You're welcome to come to my website. It's jsmar.com, JAYSMAR.com. And also, my stuff is also on CD Baby, iTunes, and Spotify. You can come listen to a lot of my music on Spotify as well. I do have recordings here you're welcome to check out. So thank you so much, Professor McNulty. And also Professor Smithers. Thank you so much. This is a tune about my grandpa. Could never be a coal miner, as I mentioned, due to his Slavic ethnicity. And I'm very happy to say back in 2017, this was nominated for a Traditional Song of the Year by Just Plain Folk out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So, I'm a coal miner. Take The long is their day, it's yours from early morning. They have no time to play, I pray for them each day. She works a day at home, that time stitching to clothes. Morning up at dawn, and the windows alone. And since running crack codes, and boss I will not be. To boss she must be German. Oh, Russian, that's not me. No chicken boss not me. Coal miner, and in these mines I'll die. Black lung kills you slowly. God bless my girls and wife, give them a better life. Lay down, good brothers, lay down, take your rest. Lay your head down upon your Savior's breast. I love you, Jesus loves you, but stand up and good night. Good night, I bid you good night. Yeah, good night. Let's see for the young and wonderful folk. Good night, good night. Sailing on the water, get the water gone. It's a good night, a been a good night. Good night, I been a good night. Yeah, good night. Thank you, everyone. Anybody have any questions about any of the songs or anything? Yes, Miss?
Are there places that are still, that one can still go to see the clog dancing and hear the music?
The clog dancing, I'm not sure about up here in the Northeast because it's more of a Southern Appalachian type thing. You know, probably once you hit Maryland and all that, I was just telling a professor a little while ago, I perform every September at Frostburg University in Frostburg, Maryland, down near Hagerstown area, and they have a lot of clog down there. There's a lot of old time stuff down there. So that's one of the places. And I believe in Harrisburg, if you check with their folk society, the Susquehanna Folk Society, they have advertisements there too, and I think they get clog dancers every now and then. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Did they actually take canaries down in the mines?
Did they take canaries in the coal mines? Yes, they did. Yes. So don't forget this was before any kind of animal rights type thing. They used to do that. They also did it with dogs as well too. And the purpose of that, for those of you unfamiliar with, they were checking the gases in the mines. A lot of these, as I mentioned before, about bootleg mines are more or less run by families or privately owned coal mines. So they're not really government inspected or anything. So you take your chance when you do have that, and they would do that even in the mines that were owned and operated, legally by the government, by the different coal companies. Yes, they would put them down there. If the gas was bad, if the canary came up and it was passed away, they knew they couldn't mine there. There was too much gas. Anybody else? Yes.
I think you said that your father worked in the mine for 50 years?
My grandfather worked in the mine.
Your grandfather?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember I mean, what kinds of things did he share with you?
Not much. I was 4 when he passed away. This is a picture of him here. And that's actually in the back of my coal mining album. My coal mining album is a compilation CD by myself and 4 other authors of the Northeast who are just trying to preserve our heritage up there. And there's a 12-page booklet inside of that explaining each tune, like Centralia and so forth, in a little bit further detail. But I do have CDs with happy music on. Just let everybody know. Anybody else? Yes, please.
What was the age range of the Breaker Boys?
Once again, please.
How old were the Breaker Boys?
Oh, how old were the Breaker Boys? They were as young as 6 years old, working there. And then as they got older, they would progress to a different job. You know, some of them. This up here, this page has a whole. I'll bring that down for you to view a little bit closer after the show if you like. But there's all the positions that a lot of the miners did as they got older too. You know, but it had to do with ethnicity too. Like I said, the German and the Welsh were always elevated to mine boss. But like my grandfather said, like in that last song, he could never be mine boss no matter how hard he worked because he was Slavic. Anybody else? Questions? Well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. Welcome to view these things if you like, and thank you for supporting the arts. Once again, the music department. And also my old friend Derek Houston, wherever he may be.